This is 5 Live Formula One with Jenny Gow.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to the Austrian Grand Prix. It's round 11 of the Formula One World Championship and there's just 5 minutes to go until the race gets underway. In Austria, it's a beautiful day. In fact, it's been a beautiful weekend. However, it's windy, a strong gusting wind that may affect the cars, may affect the plans that they've all had. And fingers crossed, it'll give us an exciting race. 71 laps around this Red Bull Ring, and Max Verstappen is in pole position. He leads the championship as well with 71 points lead, ahead of Lando Norris. And that's how it lines up on the grid as well. Then it's George Russell for Mercedes and Carlos Sainz. 4 different teams, 4 drivers at the top of the grid. Ben Edwards. It's been exciting so far, obviously a sprint weekend, so we've had a little bit of an inkling into what we could expect in this race, but the start of the sprint was amazing.
Yeah, it was very entertaining, the battle between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, with Oscar Piastri joining in. Sadly, Oscar lost out a bit in qualifying yesterday because he got a time deleted, so he's starting down in 7th place on the grid, but nonetheless, lots to look forward to, particularly, as you say, at the start.
Jack Aitken, ex-F1 driver, is also with us to guide us around these laps, and they come fast, don't they? What's it like to drive here at the Red Bull Ring?
It's actually a lot of fun. I mean, it's got a huge amount of elevation change as you go around the lap, from the massively steep turn 3 braking zone and then winding your way back down the circuit through the high-speed middle sector and end of the lap. So there's a lot on offer there, even in a short lap, and the drivers love the challenge, I think.
I just think it goes so quickly. One driver comes round and the next, and then they're round again. So yeah, a lot to keep up with. Ruth Buscombe, F1 strategist, you are here to deliver all of the interesting little snippets of information that make a race. And what are you looking out for today?
Well, on paper it's a 2-stop using that medium and hard tyre that we already saw the medium in the sprint, but with 48 degrees track, hottest race we've had here since 2021, it's actually the 3-stop is even closer than the 1-stop, and the teams are going to have to manage those tyres. Add in that 35 kph wind, could be an interesting one. Easy overtake with the 3 DRS zones, everything to play for.
Ben, we know Verstappen is in the lead of this and starts on pole. What can everyone else do to try and wrestle that win away from him?
Well, of course, the first lap is always crucial. If you can get off the line well, and Lando Norris hasn't been making the best starts in recent times, maybe it is time that he can make an absolutely brilliant start from the front row. We shall have to wait and see. The pole position here is on the outside as you head down into turn 1, so definitely an advantage. But I'm also going to be keeping an eye on George Russell, because he made such a brilliant start last time out in Spain and got past both of them. I love that to see, and it was very enjoyable to watch, wasn't it, Jack?
Yeah, it is quite a short run into turn 1 here, but the track's very wide and there is plenty of opportunity to stick your nose in there. So, you know, there will be a lot of jostling going into turn 1, but crucially there's a massively long run up to turn 3, and the slipstream potential will be huge, especially with a headwind as you go up towards turn 3.
Ruth, just talk us through the tyre choice, because they were all of a sudden popped in with 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, 3 minutes to go. We all get the tyre choices. We have 19 cars on that medium tyre, as we expected, with Joe and that Sauber starting from the pit lane on the hard tyre. They have 2 of those. They were looking to be doing something different today.
Excellent, thank you so much. Jack, we've spoken a lot about McLaren and their trying to be resurgent in this championship. What can they do specifically to try and get something out of this race that will close that gap?
Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's going to be very tough for them to beat Max today and the Red Bull. You know, they've shown that they made a real step forward yesterday in qualifying from the sprint race and qualifying. So Lando is going to do his best to hang on to him, and we'll see early on whether he can. But really, they're going to look to solidify their position in second. Oscar's going to have a bit of fighting to do to get up from 7th place, but he's going to have the car to do it, I think, with those around him being a little bit slower than him on pure pace.
Yeah, just looking at him now as we see a shot of him, his visor is up at the moment, his eagle eyes looking at what's ahead of him. He's 7th on the grid, and there's a lot of talent right ahead of him. I'm optimistic. I think I don't know if I should be, but I'm optimistic we will get something out of this race that we will enjoy. Certainly, the fans have poured into this stadium, and there are so many there, all in a sea of orange. Max Verstappen said the cars behind us, it's an ugly orange, but I don't think they'll mind. The papaya orange is trying to get some more points on the board. And Ben, look at that crowd. It is phenomenal. The support that Max Verstappen takes all around the world is unbelievable.
It is. No, it is fantastic here in Austria. There's no doubt massive support for Max Verstappen, and we are going to thoroughly enjoy seeing how this all goes. The mechanics are beginning to move away from the grid now, and the grid is being cleared as we are getting ready for the formation lap. And as we know, all cars on the medium tyre except for Zhou Guanyu, who will be starting from the pit lane on a set of hard tyres for this one. Max Verstappen having it all to do from pole. Round 11 of the FIA Formula One World Championship. Cars just moving away from the grid on the formation lap in Austria. It is Max Verstappen on pole, his 40th ever, alongside Lando Norris in the McLaren. Behind them we've got George Russell, his best start in Austria so far from third place. Carlos Sainz is the first of the Ferraris. He's out-qualified his teammate for a change. Fifth on the grid, Lewis Hamilton, a former double winner here. Charles Leclerc, another winner, is alongside. He is sixth on the grid. Seventh, Oscar Piastri, who had his fast time deleted yesterday. Sergio Perez, the other Red Bull, back down in 8th place. 9th for Nico Hülkenberg, and 10th place for Esteban Ocon. Daniel Ricciardo down in 11th place ahead of Kevin Magnussen. Then it's Pierre Gasly in 13th, Yuki Tsunoda in 14th. Fernando Alonso a long way down. He's in 15th place ahead of Alex Albon, Lance Stroll in 17th. Valtteri Bottas in 18th place. Logan Sargent is 19th. And starting from the pits, the man who qualified last, Zhou Guanyu. He will be coming out of the pits. So we have got all the cars out except for Zhou Guanyu on the formation lap. It's a short lap here. Jack Aitken alongside me. You've raced here many times in the past, Jack, and it is a track where you don't get much braked as a driver. It's pretty much full on the whole time.
It is, it's deceptive. It's a short lap, but there's a lot going on, and with the race being so toe dependent here, you've got a really slow speed corners followed by very long straights. You really have to focus on those exits and play a strategic game with the cars around you if you want to be able to pass and or defend. So it's going to be interesting in the run up to turn 3.
Absolutely, yeah, and you don't want to spin up those rear tyres too much in the first lap, because otherwise you overheat them as well, don't you? So that can be challenging.
Especially so today with the temperatures being higher. It's going to be very punishing out there for those tyres, and they're going to have to take care of them, like Ruth said.
Yeah, okay. Well, the cars are just beginning to make their way onto the grid. Max Verstappen, he's got control from that pole position. Lando Norris will be alongside him. Max has the outside line up towards the first corner. George Russell just moving into place. Let's go to Jenny.
Yes, Mercedes have said that they adjusted the car, so maybe it wasn't as good as in qualifying. They've picked it for the race, so it's important to look at their race pace when this gets going.
And our strategy expert, Ruth Buscombe, with us. Ruth, we are thinking that we're going to see at least 2 stops in this race for most people.
Yep, 2 stop is much closer than the 1 stop round here. Could even go to a 3, depending on the degradation and how tricky that wind is for our drivers out there.
Okay, well, the last few cars are just moving into position right now. It is a beautiful day in this wonderful place in the foothills of the Styrian Mountains. We're up at 660 meters from base level, and the wind blowing, but the sun is shining. It's an absolutely glorious day. The lights are coming on. We're ready to go racing. Hold, lights out, and it is Max Verstappen who makes a very good move once again. But here comes George Russell. George Russell trying to challenge. Lando Norris has second place. George Russell trying to go around the outside, doesn't quite, but Lewis Hamilton goes around the outside of Carlos Sainz, and he's gained that place. So as Carlos comes down towards turn 3, he will try and take it back, but Hamilton can go on the defence, I think. We'll see. On the braking, Lando Norris under pressure from George Russell. Russell can't quite do it. It's all together. Hamilton's got the better exit as they come out of turn 3. We've got 1 or 2 cars running wide, but so far so good. It's keeping clean as it looks, and Perez is now battling with Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, those two had contact with Charles Leclerc in turn 1. They sandwiched the Ferrari and bits of carbon flying around. Perez now squeezing Piastri onto the gravel. He's going to lose more places there.
Wow, Piastri losing a place, as you say, to Leclerc as well, so that has really hurt Oscar Piastri. Meanwhile, Nico Hülkenberg is trying to get past Pierre Gasly a bit further back. Esteban Ocon, that is. Pierre Gasly a bit further back, yeah. He's trying to make up a little bit of ground right now. Out front, though, no doubt about the pole sitter taking the best start. Let's listen. Oh, Leclerc's been told to come in. Leclerc, as you said, there was some damage on that opening stint, and he's been called into the pits.
Yeah, he's missing a lot of bodywork on that front left corner of the wing. He's going to lose a ton of downforce here, and this is an important, it's very sensitive to downforce at this track, so they've made the call to bring him in and mitigate their losses. Further down the field, we've got the Aston of Alonso being overtaken by the RB of, which one was that? Tsunoda.
Yeah, he's got past, but meanwhile Leclerc is into the pits. They're changing the front wing. This is something the mechanics often practice to try and do quickly. That took them a little longer than they thought. And meanwhile, the two Mercedes are battling hard for third place. George Russell is currently in third, but Lewis Hamilton, his teammate, is putting him under some serious pressure.
Yeah, George had to cover the middle of the racetrack there as he was really approaching him quickly with DRS, Hamilton. He could have made a late lunge, but that would have been very risky to do on your teammate. It's early doors yet, but he's looking around the outside of turn 6, looking for that clean air, not to get stuck with understeer as he follows in the wheel tracks of George, and he's able to stay pretty close here, so he's going to probably have another look as we get into the final sector.
Yeah, and of course it's going to be interesting to see how they cope with this. Track limit's much better here in Austria now as they've changed the curbs, put a little bit of gravel traps on the outside. People are running wide, much less than they have done in the past. Over the line, Max Verstappen has a lead of 1.1 seconds over Lando Norris. Then we go back to a couple more seconds. It's the battle between Russell and Hamilton. That's what we're watching right now, and it's going to be close once again. With DRS now in play, Lewis Hamilton has a chance to use that DRS. He's closing up to the back of his teammate. He's going for the inside. He goes down the inside into turn 3. Lewis Hamilton gets alongside, gets past George Russell, and Russell's going to have to watch out because Carlos Sainz is close, but now he has DRS in the next stage, and this is where he might get it back. That's the nature of this track. DRS in 2 zones. Yeah, he's got it back again.
Yeah, it's a very tactical game, like I said earlier on. George gave him the inside line into turn 3, happy to give the position away, knowing that he would have DRS going into turn 4, and it's a long enough run that you can get around the outside of your opponent there. So he made the clean pass, and it's going to be all the same thing again as we go into the next lap. But that Ferrari of Carlos Sainz is close behind. He's going to be waiting for any slip-up like we saw from Piastri yesterday when the front two were battling.
So our top 10 at the moment, Verstappen leads, Norris second, Russell third, holding on from Hamilton for now, Sainz in 5th, Perez is in 6th place, Piastri in 7th, tricky first lap for him, Hülkenberg in a good 8th place, Ocon is 9th, and in 10th place is Kevin Magnussen. There's a Hamilton-Sainz incident that they're just looking into at the moment, but the main loser, of course, in all of this is Charles Leclerc, having come into the pits, changed the front wing, and he's way down in 19th position right now as Hamilton still trying to keep the pressure on George Russell. Let's go over to our strategist, Ruth. Ruth, early days of this race, and obviously they've got to look after the tyres reasonably well at this stage now that they've got through the first lap without falling off too many, except for Charles Leclerc, of course.
Yeah, it's all about tyre management and DRS. Remember, the DRS here is worth 7/10 a lap, and the gap between P1 and P20 in Q1 was only 8/10, so it's a huge amount. It's going to be a balancing act between looking after your tyres and trying to break DRS or get DRS with the cars in front. Out front, Max has already done that with 2.3 back to Lando.
The DRS, just come back to you, the DRS is very efficient here, and we just saw the way Hamilton passed Russell on the 1 DRS zone, but then got passed back again down that next stage. I remember Verstappen and Leclerc playing at that in previous years here.
Yes, well, the fantastic thing about the DRS zone here is a little bit like a video game in that the detection for the second zone is in the third zone and vice versa. So it's all about the detection into turn 9. If you get that, you then pretty much get all 3 DRS zones for free. So the key here is to overtake into the final of those 3 ones into turn 4, so you don't get the switchback effect.
Great. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Lewis Hamilton hasn't tried again. He hasn't got quite alongside George as he did earlier, so it's still Verstappen, Norris, Russell in 3rd, Hamilton in 4th.
Yeah, he's kind of lost his momentum there. You know, as the first lap was unfolding in all that chaos, it is easier to follow your opponent and to take different lines to them, you know, capitalise on cold tyres and stay close to them, but that's going away now.
Jack, talk us through we're just having a look at the replay now, and particularly I know you spotted a bit of the problem for Leclerc. We'll try and watch out for that.
So Perez was on the inside, Leclerc in the middle, and Piastri on the outside. Leclerc didn't get a great start, and he got attacked on both sides. Perez shoving it up to the inside, has to be said, and Piastri holding his ground on the outside, and it was just a sandwich effect. So Leclerc, like you say, the big loser there. We're going to go on board with him now, and it just looks like he wasn't super aggressive off the line. No wheel spin, but not a great launch either, and he doesn't dive into the corner like his opponents, and it just leaves him a bit vulnerable. He's on the back step, and he catches the right rear of Piastri, who scampers across the runoff with, it looks like he's gotten away with it with no damage.
Yeah, we're just having another view from onboard Piastri. That's what you're hearing right now, is the sound of the McLaren. And there was that, he had to really react to that contact that was made. That was just a very typical turn one kind of incident that wasn't really anybody's fault, just unfortunate for Charles Leclerc.
No, it's a classic Constantino effect. Everyone's jostling to get that same piece of track, and it does narrow into the apex there. We have seen in the on the light with his Piastri's radio.
Yeah, I was side by side at the apex.
Copy, that's how I saw it.
Yeah, that's the classic putting in their argument for the stewards to hear, because they're of course listening to all of these radios, and he is well alongside. I would have thought he would deserve some space from Perez there, so we'll see if that gets investigated. Meanwhile, live, we've seen a change of position, I believe. The Ferrari of Sainz has slipped past Hamilton, it looks like. So Hamilton really dropping off the back of Russell now.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Carlos Sainz has just managed to move up into fourth position. Russell is still in third. So although Hamilton has been pushing pretty hard to try and get past his teammate, he has now lost that place to Ferrari. We have Red Bull leading, McLaren second, Mercedes third, and Ferrari fourth, which is actually how they qualified. But Sainz missed out on that opening lap. Hamilton's having another little look at trying to get alongside, but it's not happening yet.
Yeah, it looks like he had a really slow sector one on the previous lap, so I think he must have gone off at turn one, and that's what gave Carlos the chance. He's right in the DRS now, heading towards turn four. A late move from Sainz to the inside to defend. Hamilton on the outside, he's level.
He's having a go, but no, he hasn't quite done it, as Carlos Sainz brakes late enough, and Hamilton was not able to go around the outside. Meanwhile, we've still got another battle between Perez and Piastri. Piastri down in seventh place, but he's trying to go around the outside. Can he make it work? Yes! Oh, lovely move.
Brilliant. There's a bit of bad blood there from lap one, and Oscar really, he tried to make it stick. He did that same move yesterday in the sprint race on his teammate Lando, so he's clearly enjoying that outside line and getting the clean air onto his wing, just carrying the speed through and surprising his opponent.
Ruth, what are we seeing in terms of track speed at the moment? Who's gaining, who's losing?
Well, out front we've got Max and Lando kind of slowly getting that separation, and at the moment it does look like the Mercedes has the upper hand over the Ferrari, just like we saw in the sprint where they were about a tenth faster. Out towards the back though, we're getting these trains.
Okay, well, Hamilton having another little look at trying to get past Carlos Sainz. He's in the right place now in terms of he didn't make a big lunge into the corner where he had DRS to get closer, and he's now heading up the hill and then levelling off downhill slightly into turn four, but he's not really close enough to the Ferrari, I don't think, to challenge this time. No, he's not. So at this point, he is still in fifth place behind Carlos Sainz. Remember, the other Ferrari of Charles Leclerc had to make that early pit stop. He's still way down at the back, down in 19th position. He's ahead of Logan Sargent, who is the last runner. All 20 cars are still running at this stage, but for Hamilton, it's all proving a little frustrating.
Yeah, this is painful when you're stuck behind a slower car in these conditions, when you know that tyres are going to be crucial later in the race and the dead could be really high. Sitting in that dirty air is horrible. You just don't get the same rotation that you want from the car. You feel the tyres scrubbing across the track at extremely high speed, just building that temperature, taking away that fresh rubber. And you can see the body language of Hamilton's car is still quite aggressive. He hasn't settled in and accepted that position behind Carlos Sainz yet, and he's still trying to find a way past. Carlos moving down the straight to gently try and break the toe to minimise that slipstream effect.
Absolutely right. They're coming into turn three at the moment, climbing uphill once again. We'll see whether the DRS effect is going to help Hamilton close up a bit more to Sainz, but Verstappen has definitely opened up a decent margin, over 3 seconds the gap now. We're just having a little look at what happened to Hamilton when he was
under
passed.
investigation for turn one, so we need to let Sainz past. He's 0.9 behind.
Okay, now we understand. So Hamilton was actually told he had to let Sainz through because of how it all went at turn 1.
Yeah, Mercedes choosing to cover that one off and give the place back rather than risk a greater penalty like a 5-second time penalty, which could have been, more of a loss later on.
And we are getting right to the start of the 2-stop window. It'll be a really aggressive opening from someone towards the back. It's quite wide here. Ideally, you want to go into around lap 25 and have balanced stints, but often it's only the guys right at the front that have that opportunity. Between 15 and 25 is your normal window.
Is Hamilton a prime candidate for an early stop here now that he's bottled up behind Carlos?
I probably want to see if I could overtake first, because Hamilton only has one hard tyre. Now, the cars towards the back and the Red Bulls have 2 hard tyres. So for him, he's probably going to want to go deeper into the race, especially with these track temps.
Fair enough. Well, thanks for that, Ruth. It's going to be interesting to see how Hamilton copes with this, how he deals with it. Frustration, as you say, of being tucked in behind Carlos Sainz. Thought he'd got that move, but has had to give it back. And now he's got to make the move in the race itself if he can get DRS to work effectively. But the Ferrari's got good straight line pace, there's no doubt about it, particularly as it comes up out of turn 3, up the hill, and then down towards turn 4, even though it's getting DRS and giving DRS to Hamilton. The drag reduction system is not allowing him to get quite close enough. Further down the order, we're just seeing both Haas cars in the top 10 at the moment. That would be pretty amazing for them if they both get to score today.
It would be, and I'm sure they're ecstatic at the moment, but they are slowly slipping back from the cars in front of them, and we're seeing one of the Haas's coming in right now for a stop.
Magnussen. So that's interesting. Kevin Magnussen coming in for a very early stop here, Ruth. I know you said it might be, this is early, and also coming in, is that Ricciardo coming in? Yes, it is.
Well, these guys have got 2 hard tyres, which means that they actually have more rubber than the faster group in front. So this is right at the beginning of the 2-stop window. The degradation we've seen is in that 2-stop. So it's going to be a balancing act between the guys that are going to go hard, and only have that one hard tyre that needs to pit a little bit later, ideally.
Okay, no major difference in stop time. They both come out pretty much as they went in.
Yeah, the pit exit here is pretty notorious. You've got that very inviting wall on the exit as you come out with your slightly cold tyres, but they both make it through unscathed. It was a smart move, I think. They were bottled up behind Hülkenberg, who's dropping off the back of Perez, so they're clearly making a ploy for some clean air, which means a lot around here. Sainz now saying they are Plan A. What's Plan A in Ferrari speak? It's anyone's guess, isn't it?
Yeah, anybody's guess as to what their strategy is.
Well, in Windows, it should be a 2-stopper. And right now, with the numbers we're seeing on Deg, everybody's baseline plan, without safety cars, without VSCs that can, of course, change it all, is going to be our 2-stop.
Nico Hülkenberg coming in now as well, so he's backed up what Magnussen's done. This is going to be interesting. We'll see if the first stop, the under stop, is actually going to be better for Magnussen. Will he be ahead of Hülkenberg when he comes out or not?
Yeah, assuming the pit stop's clean, it'll be a good indication of how powerful the undercut is going to be. And we're seeing a few other cars diving into the pits from that midfield group as well, and this could have that knock-on effect as people further up the line into the top 10 start to react.
Yeah, you typically see you can kind of get almost everything here. So undercuts, overcuts and overtaking on track is all possible in terms of building tyre advantage. It just depends what your advantages are.
Yeah, look at this. As he comes out, Hülkenberg, he is just in front of his teammate Magnussen, but Magnussen's now got tyres up to temperature, and I think he's going to have every chance to overtake. He's going down the inside, having a look down the inside. Oh yeah, lock up from Hülkenberg, runs wide. He doesn't actually slow down, and he still stays in front for the moment, but Magnussen is still putting the pressure on his teammate. He knows it's his teammate. He doesn't want to do anything silly, but he's got DRS, and he's taken the place. He has gained a position ahead of his teammate, Nico Hülkenberg.
Cue the grumbles from teammate A about teammate B getting the preferential pit stop treatment, but the Haas pit wall would have been looking through their hands, I think, then, and managed to survive that little battle. But it shows that the undercut is powerful here, so that's interesting information.
Getting busy in the pit lane already, Jenny.
Yeah, it really is. It's great, isn't it? It was slightly long for Hülkenberg, 3.4 seconds. I don't think that helped them, but as you say, everyone's come in now and switched onto that hard tyre.
Okay, right. Well, let's see how many of the leaders start to come in. I mean, we've got that sort of group that were fighting at the lower end of the top 10. It means that Ocon and Gasly have now joined the top 10. They're running 8th and 9th, and Yuki Tsunoda is up into 10th place. But we've obviously seen some key people make pit stops. Magnussen down in 14th, Hülkenberg 15th, Ricciardo in 16th, and Fernando Alonso, actually, he's just got past, I think Albon may be heading into the pits because he has just gone past Albon. But up front, no great changes, and the lead that Verstappen is opening just extending bit by bit. He's got it up to 5 seconds after 12 laps completed. We're on lap 13, in fact just onto lap 14 now. 5 seconds advantage for Max Verstappen over Lando Norris in second place, George Russell in third, then Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton, who's had to sort of give up a little bit for now. He's probably looking after the tyres at this stage rather than being right on the back of the Ferrari.
I think he'll have been forced to, because you can only spend so long attacking close behind another car. So he's dropped off now to that sort of safer 1.5 second gap, and will be just trying to consolidate his losses, wait for the next opportunity, which will be around the pit stops. It's interesting that Russell is not dropping that much time in comparison to Norris either, so that fight is still on for P2. On board with Hülkenberg now, he's coming back at his teammate, and
this was yes, absolutely, down into turn 4, wasn't it? So
I wonder if that might have been a team order just to swap the places back again after his slower stop, but Magnussen certainly didn't put up a fight.
No, he didn't. So that means Hülkenberg, as you say, now back ahead of Magnussen. They're running 14th and 15th. Alex Albon is trying to make a move on Charles Leclerc, goes down the inside, and actually gets past the Ferrari. So makes you wonder what's going on there, Jenny.
Yeah, I have asked the team what the damage was for Leclerc. We saw him come in, change that front wing. They haven't got back to me yet, but obviously he's lost a bit of downforce. Probably the floor is a problem as well, so not running as it should be.
And of course, Charles has only got one hard tyre. He's got quite a lot of mediums, but that's the only hard he's got. And it's the same story for the guys up front. Max has 2 hards. He's got 1 used medium that you can use again. Magnus on team radio here.
Got to manage the tyres, Kev. Got to manage the tyres.
And
Just me or Nico too? Those cars need to save tyres. A long way to go.
And I would completely agree with that comment. Whether you're on the hard or on the medium here, you need to save it. The hard gives you a little bit extra life, a little bit lower deg, but it's a little bit slower. And as we saw, it's a little bit slower out the box. Right at the front, Max can react to whatever goes on. He's got 2 hards. He could also do the medium, hard, medium strategy he did last year. Charles, Perez, Sainz, all the rest of our front runners, all of the Mercedes, they have got 2 medium tyres. Now on paper, doing medium, hard, medium is the best, because in case there's a safety car, you kind of want to have that medium for the restart here towards the end of the race.
And with the way that Verstappen's got this advantage at the moment, do you think he might go really quite deep into this race before he makes his first stop, or will it be an earlier stop than that?
Well, it doesn't make any sense to box unless you've got a trigger, because the only way you can lose this race is by boxing, and then there's a safety car that comes outside after it, as we kind of looking to see how the tyres go. So if you can, you keep going.
Okay, well, let's see. It seems to be working so far for Verstappen. We're just having a look at the replay of Alex Albon, how he got past Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, just towed up to the back of him, and Charles didn't provide any of the fight, actually. And, Albon will have fresher hards than Leclerc, and Leclerc has longer to go on them as well. So, potentially saving the tyre a bit, but it's still odd to see a Ferrari pass so easily by the Williams there. It does seem like something's not quite right in that car.
We've got a couple of teammate battles going on, haven't we, which is quite fun, because we've got Ocon and Gasly in the 2 Alpines. Esteban Ocon is currently in 8th place, Pierre Gasly in 9th, and they're separated by around a second. And then, as we saw just a moment ago, Magnussen has, despite the little message we heard on the radio, he's not given up on the idea of passing his Haas teammate, Nico Hülkenberg.
No, not at all. He seems pretty intent on fighting him, which I don't really understand, because he gave the place back fairly easily, and then he seems intent on going again for another round. So odd behaviour in the Haas camp at the moment, and it's the worst thing for those engineers, having to deal with the 2 drivers wrapped up in their own battle when they've got to make these tyres last.
And I was just going to say, because as a driver, if you decide you're going to tuck in behind your teammate or another rival, and you're going to push and be right behind them all the time, you're losing downforce, so you're actually putting more deg into the tyres. Your tyres will not last as well, will they?
Absolutely. As long as you're in that sub 1.5 second gap, you're just bleeding downforce, and you're sliding the tyre more. And Leclerc actually saying that they're going to box this lap, which is not on plan, I would say. They would have wanted to take that hard a lot longer, so we'll see what's going to happen here. Possibly some inspection on the car.
Yeah, I wonder, because you wonder if there's another problem. They did change the front wing, but it is just a tyre choice. So they are going back out again.
Bizarre. Yeah, they've gone to the medium, which it will not make the end of the race. So, Ruth, I don't know what you think of that.
Well, they got overtaken by a kind of the much slower car. I think that car is carrying a little bit of damage, to be honest, if you look at the pace of it. I think they've pitted just to make sure that they come out in front of the trailing car of Sargent. They have plenty of mediums, nature of a sprint race, so they've got rubber to finish the race. But as you say, right now, it's not looking good, and that car isn't driving, at the same pace that you would expect, especially compared to his teammate. For me, the car's got damage.
We're still in the relatively early stages of the Austrian Grand Prix, being led by championship leader Max Verstappen, with Lando Norris in second place and George Russell currently in third. Don't forget, lots more sport to look forward to today. We'll be joining Mark Chapman later on for the build-up to England's round up against Slovakia. The kick-off at 5 here on Radio 5 Live. Hope you're going to be able to stay with us for that. But right now we're focusing on Formula 1. Nico Hülkenberg is now trying to put a bit of pressure on the Zhou Guanyu, and in fact he's got a good DRS zone. He's going to have a chance to outbrake him into turn 3, fairly straightforward, and Magnussen trying to do the same.
Yeah, they've come across the Sauber, who seems to be a lot slower than the two Haas's, while they're having their own battle as well. So Magnussen now tucked up behind Zhou, and he's going to try and pop out around the outside, and he's fighting it, but he gets around, so the Haas battle continues. Zhou wasn't able to interrupt them for long enough there.
Zhou hasn't changed tyres yet, has he? So presumably that makes life a bit harder at this point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in terms of tyre degradation, we're 20 laps almost into the race. He's going to be carrying, a good amount of degradation. That's way more than the overtaking difficulty. So kind of a bit of a sitting duck.
We're just having a look at a replay of Charles Leclerc a moment ago, and I think that was just his move on Logan Sargent, managing to go past fairly straightforward. But we're still not convinced that everything's working quite right for that car, are we?
No, I mean, Logan's been on those tyres from the start of the race.
So Lando, the hard does look poor, which makes this stint for us important. And also remember, we have two mediums, the Red Bulls don't.
Okay, now that's an interesting one, Ruth. So the hard tyre not working as well as we thought?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a little bit slower. It's not a huge difference, but that's all that Lando's got, really. Max has one used medium left, so he could still go onto a used medium. But as Will Joseph, his race engineer, said there, on paper he's got those two hard tyres.
Okay, well, let's wait and see. Jack, right now, Russell is about 4 seconds away from Lando Norris. There doesn't seem to be a huge difference in pace, but the McLaren is that little bit quicker than the Mercedes still.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It looks like he's just eking out a few tenths here and there, but Lando, you can see, is starting to struggle with that tyre. He had a lock up into turn 4 on the previous lap, and he was wide at turn 3 a few laps before that, so he's really trying to get everything he can out of those mediums.
Esteban Ocon coming into the pits. Let's go over to Jenny.
Yes, it just picked up on Sergio Perez. He's also has a little bit of damage to his Red Bull. So Charles Leclerc running with damage, and now Sergio Perez also running with damage. And that was picked up on the first lap incident as well.
Okay, thank you for that. 2.8 second stop, reasonable, but not the best for Alpine. Bottas has also come into the pits right now. Good pit stop, of course, just under 2 seconds. That's what we really like to see, and some of the top teams have been putting those together quite regularly this year.
Yeah, Esteban was very ginger on his way into the box. I'm not sure if you didn't trust the tyres or the brakes or what, but you can't forget that the entry to the pit lane exit and into your box and the launch, they all add up to pit time as well. So you need to get every little bit right. Back to the on-track action, and Zhou Guanyu having a bit of a moment going wide at turn 3 there, and he's really struggling on those tyres now. Yeah,
he is really struggling, as you say. Zhou running down in 15th place. Remember, he started from the pit lane, and he has made up a bit of ground, but that's partly because other people have stopped and are now on fresh tyres. We're getting a replay. Jack, talk us through the replay of him going off.
Yeah, just running up to turn 3. It's a massive stop on the brakes, aided by the gravity of going into the hill. He is overtaken by an RB, and he gets a hit from behind, so there was another car involved there. Didn't quite see. It looked like the Mercedes. Here's his radio.
What the is he doing?
Oh, there was actually, contact.
It's Alonso, I think. I didn't quite see it in that quick shot, but he got airborne off the rear of the contact to his rear left there. So yeah, significant hit. He's still running, looks okay. And there's still a battle raging on in the midfield here.
Yeah, good further down the order, but up front it's fairly clear for Max Verstappen at the moment with a 5-second advantage, and Zhou is having to get out of the way a little bit here as Albon now goes through on the inside. That was clean, no dramas at all, and Albon gaining the place. Esteban Ocon is about to gain the place as well. We're just listening in to Esteban Ocon, who's got some DRS, and he's just sweeping around the outside now, quite straightforward into turn 4. But this is a battle that's further down the order. Currently they're down in 13th, 14th, 15th places. Up front, it is Verstappen, Norris, Russell, Sainz, and into the pits comes Lewis Hamilton, Sergio Perez also into the pits. That was a much more rapid stop, so it's all coming together.
Yep, and this is the point that the leaders, the guys from P3 through to P6, are all going to have to decide whether they want to react and cover. So expect big pit stops coming up now.
Okay, Sergio Perez on his way, 2.1 seconds. That was a slightly quicker stop from them. And of course, this is moving others up who made early pit stops, but this will change strategy a little bit later in the race. Those changing tyres later will have very fresh tyres in the latter stages, of course. Listen to Piastri.
I think Hamilton crossed the white line on entry. Copy that.
So that's interesting. Piastri just reporting something that he's seen that Lewis Hamilton was doing that he felt was not quite right.
Yeah, dobbing it in. Any chance they can to report things like that to the stewards, why not?
Absolutely. Well, just having another look actually at the replay. Jack, talk us through. Did he get this wrong on the entry?
So you do have to be inside of the white line, and it looks like he is, but it tightens on the exit and he gets a big snap of oversteer. His front wheels are in, but his rear left might have been out. These cars are very long, of course. We get an external shot now. That's brilliant car control, but I think he is over the line, and there's the black mark on the track. That's the evidence that you need, so that could be a penalty.
And Piastri was right behind, having a lovely view of it at the time. He was on a flying lap himself. He wasn't coming into the pit. So some more pit stops. Russell in and Carlos Sainz making their pit stops. These two are effectively fighting for third position. Russell was holding third before the pit stops started to come around. He's now dropped down to fourth. It's actually moved Piastri up because he has not made a stop yet. Oscar Piastri has been left out, so we've now got the McLaren second and third. Norris in second, Piastri in third. George Russell, now having made that stop, is in fourth. Sainz in fifth. Hamilton still behind them in sixth, and Max Verstappen now being told to come in.
Yeah, and this is your classic two-stop window.
Lando Norris the same.
All of the leaders are coming in. In fact, the only one that's not under pressure to react is Piastri. He's got quite a gap behind him and then quite a slower car. So he's now going to be able to extend a little bit in case there's a safety car or a VSC. He might be able to jump everybody else for very little risk because he's kind of at the back of that leader group.
Well, Verstappen, not the best stop for Red Bull that we've seen this year, 2.7 seconds, but it's clean enough. They've got him on his way, and actually, funnily enough, it's almost the same for Lando Norris. We've just seen a 10-second penalty for Fernando Alonso for causing collision. I think that was the Zhou Guanyu incident. So 10-second penalty he will have to take when he comes into the pits himself for his next pit stop. Piastri is now leading the race because Verstappen has been into the pits. So Oscar Piastri leading the Austrian Grand Prix at this stage.
Yeah, he has to try and take advantage of this clean air now and just run as hard as he can. It's the best thing when you get some clean laps during a race. You feel that fresh air on the wing, the car coming alive a little bit, and while his rivals may be tripping up over some other traffic, like his teammate Lando Norris just had to slip past the Williams there into turn 3, he could make up some gains here.
Absolutely. So it's just a question of how long they're going to leave Piastri out on this rather different strategy. But it's worth a bit of a gamble for them, isn't it, when he had to start that much further back?
Exactly. So the car that he's going to be looking at the pitting window for is Checo. So Checo is the car that he's racing behind. He can last a good couple of laps. They'll be watching that pit stop window. They need to be, as long as they can bleed away the time down to 20 seconds, all they're doing is covering more of a safety car window for no loss, which could give them the upper hand. They don't go back.
Yeah, he launched straight into me. Yeah, we're on it.
We're just looking at a replay.
Turn right to the box.
This is a talk from Lando Norris, Jack, of how it was for him as he came into the pits. Do you feel that was wrongly done by Red Bull, sending Max out?
It's a close one, that's for sure. I mean, Lando was already easing his way into the box. Lewis Hamilton gets a 5-second penalty. He did cross that line on pit entry, so that's going to be either added to the next stop or the end of the race. But yeah, Lando had to really slam on the brakes to, well, I say avoid. There was still some space. I think Lando was more surprised than anything else that the Red Bull was launched. So, you know, I don't know how they're going to see that in the steward's box.
Johnny Herbert is the driver steward this weekend, so he's the one who'll look at that along with his 3 other members of the stewarding panel, and they seem to be dishing out a lot of penalties today. They must be a little excited.
Yeah, they seem to be adding a few penalties, you're right, but Hamilton's having a bit of a frustrating weekend. He looked very rapid in first practice on Friday, and everything since then hasn't quite come together for him and that little error has cost him some valuable time. So Piastri now into the pits, so he's gone deeper. I wonder where this is going to bring him out. It's that battle with Perez, as you said, Ruth, that's going to be a bit key here, isn't it?
Yeah, he should be coming out in front of Checo, so nothing ventured, nothing gained, but it was a good idea to extend and cover that later window across the critical pitting window.
Good pit stop, 2.1 seconds, so quicker than some of the others we've just seen. A new fastest lap by Lando Norris, interestingly. Lando Norris on the hard tyre.
Okay, so we do have a 5-second time penalty, but we just get our head down and get on with it.
Yeah, sorry guys.
No problem, Lewis.
Yeah, he knew he'd gone over the line on his pit entry, and that has cost him a 5-second penalty, which we will see at his next pit stop. He is currently still in 5th place. So the order right now: Max Verstappen leading from Lando Norris in 2nd place, George Russell in 3rd, Carlos Sainz in 4th, Lewis Hamilton in 5th, but he will be getting a 5-second penalty. If you added 5 seconds right now, then it would certainly see Piastri move up. Piastri is currently in 6th position. Hulkenberg is currently ahead of Perez, interestingly. So Hulkenberg in 7th, who made an earlier pit stop. Perez is in 8th, Magnussen in 9th in the second Haas, so both Haas still running in the top 10, and Daniel Ricciardo has that final 10th spot at the moment for the RB team.
They've just announced that they are going to look into that incident between Norris and Verstappen for an unsafe release. The key thing here is if the car behind, i.e. in the fast lane, so Norris in this case, did he have to slow down to avoid a collision? It's really tough to say because Lando actually braked fairly preemptively. He left a bit of a gap, about a car length, maybe a bit less, I would say. So I don't know how the stewards are going to judge that. They kind of have to. Here's Hamilton on the radio.
Lewis, there's everything to play here, everything to play.
The Toto Wolff G-up message to Hamilton, get the head down.
That's quite unusual, isn't it, for him to come across when it's not like battling for the lead. So that's interesting. I just wanted to make a point that we have a couple of drivers who are still out there on the mediums. So Russell changed onto the mediums. Everyone else on hard, apart from Alonso on the mediums, a used set of mediums. Stroll and Leclerc, they're all the medium runners. Everyone else, as I say, is on hard.
Okay.
And this is interesting because of how it will play out at the end of the race. So typically you want to kind of have a medium at least available in the office, as we should say, to have in case you have a safety car. Because the thing about here is if there is a safety car, the restart gain is actually huge on a softer compound. So we had a great example in 2020 where you got 3/10 to turn forward just by being on a softer compound.
Well, thank you, Ruth. All your strategy expertise from your working in Formula One for many years. We're just looking, Jack, at that incident where Fernando Alonso has been penalised, and it did look a bit daft.
Yeah, he just tripped up there. He made a mistake. You know, he saw that Zhao was on the outside and being overtaken ahead, and he wanted to capitalise and get in on the action. Unfortunately, he just locked the inside front as he turned in and couldn't slow down in time, rubbed up against the side pod first and then touched his rear wheel, and that's what sent Zhou off into the runoff area. So I would say penalty deserved, and it was just an honest mistake.
And it's going to drop Alonso quite a long way down in the list he's in, because there's a very close battle that he's in at the moment. He's currently 11th, only just under a second away from Daniel Ricciardo, but right behind him he's got several cars: Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly. Only a little further back is Alex Albon, Yuki Tsunoda. That whole group will be ahead of him once he comes in with that 10-second penalty. Up front, Max Verstappen. Let's listen in.
You have to let me know when I have to upshift on the end of the straight.
Understood. Gear 7 still fine, Max. Gear 7 still fine.
So it's just a little bit of work with his engineer, making sure that everything's going right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're managing any kind of an issue there, but these engines do have an extremely wide operating window when it comes to shifting. I mean, they've got a lot of torque to play with, so you do see drivers playing around with that shift point either early or late, and Max just asking, you know, what's the best gear for me at the end of the straight. So, you know, if they're managing an issue, it's good communication. Otherwise, he just seems a bit bored, to be honest.
Esteban Ocon just putting a bit more pressure under Fernando Alonso in that group, down for 10th, 11th, 12th places. Ricciardo just ahead of them in that 10th place. I just want to see if he's going to get a chance heading up towards turn 4, because with the DRS, but they're all in a DRS group, so it's not enabling at this stage to get past Alonso. In a way, I'm surprised Ricciardo hasn't come under more threat, because he hasn't got that DRS quite in operation yet, with being a bit further back from Magnussen up ahead.
Yeah, exactly. That battle for the last points position is really heating up. And don't discount Charles. Whilst we've been watching at the front, he's slowly been making his way back up towards.
And this is good, Charles. We're projected to come to the points. even without a safety car.
That was well predicted, Ruth. How did you do that?
Almost like I was using race strategy.
Excellent. Well, we'll see. What do you reckon, Jack? At the moment, Leclerc's quite a long way down, but he's on this different strategy. So he does have a bit of overtaking on track to make it work.
He does, and the cynic in me and the driver who's been subjected to those kind of messages before, the engineer will always try and G you up and give you something to chase. So there might have been a bit of a positive spin on that, but they're definitely giving it a go. Verstappen being told it's still pretty gusty out there, talking about the wind, which is it is up there today, and there's a dive up the inside by Gasly on his teammate.
Yeah, Gasly trying to get past his teammate Esteban Ocon, and the two of them are absolutely together. So we're watching right now a really good group, 4 cars battling from 10th place. So you get a point for 10th place. It really matters to all of these teams, I tell you. The Daniel Ricciardo car, the RBE, is currently in 10th place with Alonso in 11th, but we know he has got a penalty coming up later. And then we've got Ocon and Gasly, and they've been just in or outside the top 10 throughout this race and through qualifying, etc. So the chance to score points, which they have been doing more recently. They've been scoring 9th and 10th places a bit more regularly. Perez incident has been noted, speeding in the pit lane. So, as you said, there's a lot of penalties coming out today. There seem to be all sorts of things.
Yeah, when speeding in pit lane is noted, you wouldn't bet against a penalty coming, so there's more misery for Perez coming.
Yeah, exactly, and that would actually put Hülkenberg into contention. Maybe Checo's a little bit too fast, but yeah, P8 all the way down to P10 right now is up for contention. Maybe even P7 if Checo does get a penalty.
Yeah, good point. We're listening on board Pierre Gasly at the moment, as again he's very close to his teammate Esteban Ocon. I always find it quite intriguing, that line that they take into turn 3. You can take a kind of middle line. You don't have to clip the apex on that corner and still be just as quick through there, can you?
There's a really big ramp up in the track at the apex there, and it means that the inside wheel often picks up on the rear and you get a lot of wheel spin, which is really unpleasant. So drivers sometimes elect to take the wide route round and just have a smoother exit, and those 4 cars that are very, well, 5 now with Magnussen dropping into Ricciardo, all taking slightly different lines there because they're all searching for the best exit, the best launch for the long run down to turn 4. When you're in a DRS train like that, it is very difficult to get the upper hand on your opponent, and you're almost waiting for the car in front of you to be tripped up by the person in front of him, get a bit of dirty air, get a bit more understeer than you expect in one of the corners, and then you capitalise on that mistake.
Okay, well, let's see what happens here. We may end up seeing some mistakes because this is a very close little battle for the final point in this Austrian Grand Prix. Daniel Ricciardo still holding on to 10th, chased by Fernando Alonso, but then chased even harder by the 2 Alpines as Ocon again is coming under pressure from Pierre Gasly. Gasly might have a little look this time, moves in, then out. They've got to be a bit cautious when you're up against your teammate. But of course, we've seen these two hit each other already this year. There was that very embarrassing incident in Monaco when Esteban Ocon hit Pierre Gasly. It ended the race for Ocon. Thankfully, Gasly was able to continue, but it made the team pretty unhappy. And it was, although they had already decided at that point that Ocon was not going to continue with the team, I think they were quite happy to put that out after Monaco, the news that he would not be continuing with them from the end of this year.
It's always difficult to manage a driver who's known to be on the way out because you lose a bit of leverage, in all honesty. So no love lost in these two, but we have some news from the penalty front.
Yeah, we've got another penalty. It's Perez. He's got a 5-second penalty, and it's just of interest really in lap 33. But actually, the teams are responsible for serving their own penalties. So when a car comes in to do a pit stop, the team have to time that 5 or 10-second penalty, and only to their measurements will they then go and be able to work on it. So it'll be interesting in the next pit stop window to see that penalty play out through that through the grid.
Let's get a quick update on the cricket with Isabel Westbury.
Having bowled New Zealand out for 141, England have begun their chase well. 38 for no wicket. Tammy Beaumont 18 not out. Maya Bouchier 20. England 38 for no wicket, chasing 141.
Thank you, Isabel. Well, we're continuing with the battles up front and further down the field right now. Fastest lap again for Lando Norris, but he's still in that second place, 7.8 seconds behind Max Verstappen. And Verstappen looking in total control. Listen to Gasly.
He's got to pass Fernando faster, losing time now.
Copy that.
Now this is all teamwork, of course. Pierre Gasly's basically complaining to his team there, Jack, that his teammate should be able to get past the car in front. So why doesn't he get on with it? Otherwise I should be going there.
Yeah, it's a queue forming and Gasly wants to jump up and have his go at it, but the Alpines do look like they've got more pace than the Aston. They just haven't been able to jump ahead of them at this time. They end up fighting each other more than the Aston, but we're now on board with Leclerc, who's diving into the pit lane.
Yeah, so Charles Leclerc coming in for what is a third stop. Remember, the first stop was for a change of front wing because there was an incident at the first corner, so it's been a bit of a tough start to the day for him. A little bit close on, sort of a little slow on the left front. So they've got him going. They lost about a second maximum there on that left front, being a little slow, but he's got going again. 3.2 second stop, and once more coming back out. There's no incident, no penalties for Verstappen on the release with Lando Norris. Lando Norris just going past Leclerc, but that's basically a lap down for Charles Leclerc versus Lando Norris. But yes, the little question that we had about the pit lane when Lando Norris complained about Max Verstappen, that is not proving to be any kind of penalty for anybody.
Yeah, and lap 35 is a long way to go on a medium to the end. Last year, the earliest someone managed to go was from lap 37 with De Vries. It is possible they could also potentially be thinking about adding another short stint at the end.
Okay, so that's Leclerc, and we have got a bit of a move now from Esteban Ocon getting past Fernando Alonso. So he's managed to do that on the way up into turn one. You don't always see moves there, but that was pretty effective. Now Alonso has DRS, so he may well be able to come back again, and he is looking for it. Oh, Ocon blocking it. Gasly goes to the outside. Now Gasly gets past Alonso and he's actually having a go at his own teammate. Don't touch each other, boys. Oh, Gasly ends up running wide as a result of that. Over the curbs, has to tuck in behind again. That nearly went horribly wrong, but they have got both Alpines ahead of Alonso.
Yes, they have, and you could almost see that was coming, the shove from Ocon to push Gasly wide on the exit of turn 3, and Alonso commenting on the radio, wow, as he watches the battle between the two Frenchmen. But no quarter given by Ocon, and I doubt that the team will look upon that very kindly.
That was all a bit close. Thankfully both cars have survived, but it was pretty aggressive stuff, as we could imagine. Jenny?
Alonso's being told to box. He has a 10-second penalty. You must remember that incident where he crashed into Zhou, so he'll come in now and serve 10-second penalty, and then they'll do the tyre change.
And that should bring him out just in front of Charles Leclerc, and he has a hard that he can now run to the end on.
Right, that's very interesting, okay. But this is going to be a tough one for Alonso. It's always painful when you have to come into the pits and then stop and wait. Your mechanics are all there. They're not allowed to touch the car. You can't touch anything. If they do, you'll get another penalty. Waiting for those 10 seconds to tick away. It feels like forever for the racing driver.
Yeah, and it's horrible for the car as well. The brakes are getting hot, and you're just sitting there with the tyres out of the warmers. They're getting cold. Everything's going in the wrong direction, but they get the tyres changed. He's onto the hard and away again.
But 14.4 seconds. They only had to serve a 10-second pit stop. So actually 4.4 is the time it took them to change the tyres, and that's long.
Yeah, okay, well, I think the extra heat, as you say, from sitting there for so long is a part of that. We're just looking at a replay, Jack, of this incident when they were attacking Alonso, the two Alpines, and then Pierre Gasly trying to get past his teammate.
Yeah, Gasly takes advantage of them two scuffling on the inside. He goes right the way around the outside. Here's his radio.
What was that? Why did you see just run me off the track?
Yeah, well, that's the response that you'd expect from the driver, and he's not wrong. You know, he was well alongside on the outside, and Ocon effectively did the same to him as he did in Monaco, but Gasly was even further alongside, and Gasly had run off to take this time to avoid a collision. So, you know, you could even argue that should go to the stewards.
Yeah, Ruth, what do you think on that one as a strategist? I mean, I know it's slightly different. You never quite know. It depends how the stewards decide, but he didn't give a car width to his teammate there, did he?
Yeah, exactly. It is so painful to watch, especially you know, where every point matters when you see your drivers fighting. It's like seeing your kids fight. And as we saw, that also cost Fernando some time, including that slow stop, which means he's filtered out right at the back in P19 behind Charles and Joe, that's yet to pit for his second stop.
Tsunoda just had a bit of a little bit of a lock up there, but managing to get past Albon. Meanwhile, we're riding with Oscar Piastri here. He's currently running in 6th place, and actually he's doing a good job. He's only 1.7 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, he's been faster than Hamilton consistently over the last few laps, just reeling him in a few tenths a lap. Nothing dramatic, but he's been quick, as has his teammate Lando Norris in P2.
Yeah, and exactly as Jack says, they might be setting up for an undercut. We're getting close to that kind of 2-stop window for the second stop. So if he's within at least a second, he could both undercut or even, overtake on track, because as you say, he is faster.
Well, we'll see what happens for McLaren. It was disappointing for them yesterday when Oscar Piastri lost his rapid lap that should have put him third on the grid, but it was decided he had just fractionally run over the track limits. There was a bit of an argument about it, but in the end he had to start from 7th place. Piastri now in 6th, but a real chance of moving up to at least 5th, maybe then chasing after Carlos Sainz in 4th.
Well, he's going to get Hamilton either on track or at the stop, because Hamilton has that 10-second penalty to face. If I was McLaren, my focus would be on how do I get Sainz?
Yes, no, that's an absolutely good point. And what it also means is that if they can get Sainz with Leclerc right down towards the back, and I know there is still a chance of him scoring some points, but remember, McLaren are third to Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship at the moment. So if they can get Piastri up ahead of Sainz, and with what Norris is doing, this could be very important to them, couldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. With that slightly shorter stint and the pace that Charles is doing with that car that does look a bit damaged, I think points difference-wise, it is going to be tough for him to get back into the points at this stage without a safety car intervention, of course, that could bring the pack back together. So yeah, points difference, you've got to be focused on Sainz if you are the McLaren pit wall right now.
Jack, as an XF1 driver, a driver who you've raced all sorts of different categories around this Austrian circuit, I know. We're now over halfway through it. It's quite a high temperature day today. We're just seeing Magnussen come in. From a driver point of view, how are they feeling at this stage in the race, do you reckon?
Well, hopefully, if your training's been going well, you're working up a sweat, but you're feeling fine. There's so much adrenaline when you're in the car, so much to focus on, that you really have to be suffering a lot to let that interfere with getting the job done. Here's Verstappen.
I don't know what's happening. Tires are suddenly really bad.
Copy.
So he's reporting on his hard tyres.
Yeah, it's interesting. With the hard, it could go either way. It could be that, they're reaching the end of the life. Maybe temperature's getting a little bit too high on the surface, and he's just tipped over that operating window. So we're on board now with Stroll, who's diving up the inside into turn 6 to get ahead of
Alex Albon.
Indeed. But going back to Verstappen, it could also be that as the tyre wears down and gets thinner, if they get too cold, it can be very hard to get them back into that operating window, and you actually lose a little bit of the ability to play with that tyre and put temperature in, take it out as the rubber gets thinner and thinner.
Hulkenberg coming in now, Ruth. So that's we saw him make an early stop. Now he's making an early second stop.
Yeah, I mean, this is 30 laps. You can get to the end on that hard tyre. Of course, Haas have 2 sets of that hard tyre, and the hard tyre is slower than the medium. As Jack says, towards the end of its life, it gets a little bit cold, but you do have slightly lower deck.
Oh, look at the 2 Alpines. They're going side by side. Pierre Gasly's got the chance to get past Ocon now, I think. Or is he?
No DRS. No DRS for Gasly. He's got to go around the outside as Ocon inches ahead. He covers the inside. Gasly's well alongside. They leave each other space for once, and he's got the inside now for turn 6 as the circuit goes from right to left.
Let's see, though, side by side. Yeah, he does get through. And Gasly's managed to get past his teammate, Esteban Ocon. That puts him up into 8th place. Thankfully, they didn't actually touch each other that time.
Yeah, huge sigh of relief in the Alpine garage. And if Gasly was being truthful, then he's released now into clean air. He's got a gap to work himself into and to try and extend himself away from Ocon.
Interestingly, the incident involving Ocon and Alonso has been noted up at turn 3.
That would have been because Ocon covered him on the slight kink, which is actually turn 2 here, going into turn 3. Alonso had popped his nose out, but was effectively being guided off the track by Ocon. I don't know if Alonso was actually alongside him, but that's what they'll be looking at.
Fair point, yes. That was before we saw then the incident between the 2 Alpine teammates into the sort of right-hander, wasn't it? So that's an interesting aspect to it.
Yeah, exactly. And we said every single point counts in that championship battle, right from like P6 down to P10. And whereas at the front, it's all rather spread out with P1, 2 and 3 around 7 or 8 seconds apart. Those last points positions are so close and they mean so much.
This was fun, Jack. We're just looking at a replay of the Gasly-Ocon battle again.
I winced. There was nothing between those two. Ocon darted out to cover the inside as he saw Gasly coming up in very quickly to him in his mirrors, and then came back to try and squeeze him on the outside, and there was nothing between the wheels of those two cars. And Gasly returning the favour as they dived into turn 6 to take that place, but yeah, it's very, very hard battling there.
To be fair to Gasly, he didn't push Ocon too wide turning into the left-hander. He gave him space, which was fair enough, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think Gasly played that very well.
Jenny.
Yes, looking at Verstappen and Norris, actually the gap has come down by almost a second for Norris. Norris has the fastest lap at the moment. He posted that about 10 laps ago. But they both stopped at the same time, so they're both on the same kind of hard tyre at the moment. So we're looking for them to stop again at some point soon, I expect.
And that gap is critical because Max right now is going through blue flags. Now, it doesn't just cost the car that gets the blue flags, it also costs the blue flagger, if that's a real verb. Whereas Lando is actually in front of Charles, so he's kind of got relatively clear air. So that gap is going to continue to trickle down. He does still have margin to react, though. So even if McLaren try and pull an undercut, Max has got plenty of margin to be able to react.
As you say, Lando Norris has got under 7 seconds, the gap. But it's been over 7 seconds for quite a while to Verstappen. It's just under now. But we're also keeping an eye on Piastri's progress to try and catch Lewis Hamilton. As we know, Lewis does have a penalty that will drop him back anyway, but it's still in Piastri's mode to try and get as close to Hamilton and overtake him on road if possible.
Yeah, he's definitely in that undercut zone, but it's difficult for him now because he is hitting that dirty air. He's stalled out now for a couple of laps in that 1.5 second area.
And of course, what McLaren do have is a follow option. So they can say, follow Hamilton into the pits, because they know with the 10-second penalty, they will get that position. So they've got that place. It's got to be focused on how do they maybe try and get Sainz for P4 at the end of the race.
Yeah, we'll see. Gasly's been into the pits. That was a 3-second stop. Not perfect, but okay. Albon incident, failing to follow the race director's instructions, crossing the line. We shall see if there's any actual penalty for him. But meanwhile, it is still Max Verstappen who has a lead. It's a comfortable lead, but it is being narrowed down very slightly by Lando Norris. We're just looking at a little replay of bobbling over the curbs and a piece of bodywork coming off Esteban Ocon's car, Jack.
Yeah, it's one of the flicks attached to the inner side of the rear wheel, which is it's all part of effectively of the diffuser to try and energize that air coming off the back of the car and generate downforce. So really not ideal around a circuit like this where it's such a sensitive track for downforce.
And depending on where that debris is, if a VSC comes out, that only costs 10 seconds to box rather than the 20 seconds to box. So anything like that could change this race. It looks pretty static at the front all the way over.
It was just in the gravel trap that they've put in on the exit of turn 9, so it's not on the track, but it's pretty close.
Interesting. So Ocon now making his pit stop. We know that Gasly was ahead of him just before they both made their pit stops, but it's actually quite a quicker stop for Ocon, so he may well come out. Well, in fact, Gasly's just going through it ahead of him now, so it hasn't put them back together quite the same, even though he's had a slightly better stop. Lance Stroll has just made a decent stop, but both of the Aston Martins, I'm afraid, are way outside the points. I don't think you're going to see any points scored today by Aston Martin here in Austria. We're looking at teams that are strong here, are definitely Red Bull, although Perez, he's not really doing anything particularly exciting today. Last year, Perez went from 15th on the grid to finish 3rd. He got a podium. Amazing. It's nothing like that here today.
He's stuck in no man's land, isn't he? He's not with that fighting group of the top 6. He's about 15 seconds behind Piastri, and then he's got the midfield behind him who are well off of him. So he's just, I don't know if it's because he feels he's got nothing to fight for, but yeah,
he made a little bit of contact earlier, didn't he? So maybe the car's not quite as clean as it should have been, but nonetheless, a bit disappointing that he is down in that 7th place. Yuki Tsunoda, who's running in 8th, has now come into the points. Both the Haas cars are still running very close to one another. In fact, they're under a second. They're behind Perez, so we're actually just watching that now. Sergio Perez currently in 7th place with both Haas cars. I mean, it seems bizarre to me that the Red Bull is under this much pressure unless it does have some damage on it, because it's being chased by 2 of the cars that most tracks it's not particularly quick, the Haas.
Yeah, as you say, it's a very strong possibility, isn't it? So he's now going to be in the middle of this very bloody fight between the 2 Haases, which is not a great place to be. But yeah, struggling.
Lando Norris still in 2nd place. The gap to Verstappen, 6.4 seconds. George Russell in a very lonely 3rd place in the Mercedes. He is 12 seconds behind, but he is still trying to push on, of course. There's a little battle further back, a bit of lapping going on. In fact, George is all a part of that at this stage.
Stroll was defending from Russell there, which is pretty bizarre. He will have been showing the blue flags, I'm sure, and Russell will be pretty irate with that. He's just costing him time. He is going to box this lap, George Russell. He's just been called in by his team.
Okay, still looking on target for the podium here.
Yes, exactly. He's got that kind of that two-stop window. Russell opted to fit that medium tyre, so he'll now probably be running the hard tyre, because you obviously have to run two different compounds in the race, which might be slightly different to the cars around them, that are probably going to cycle onto the medium, with that being the choice for both Lando and Sainz, with that's the only compound they have left.
Okay, so Russell comes into the pits. We'll just have a quick look and see how quickly the pit stop goes for the Mercedes team. Brand new set of tyres going on, and on his way. 2.3 seconds, pretty good.
Yeah, fairly clean stop, so we'll see where he filters out now and what reaction that brings from the field, if any. Well, obviously, as Ruth said, they're on a different compound compared to Russell. He's the odd one out here.
Yep, so they've timed that stop to come out in lovely clean air ahead of the Red Bull of Checo. And as you say, because the gaps are quite big at the front, with P1 and P2 separated by 6 or 7 seconds, they've got time to react. As you typically see a concertina effect, where people towards the back pit earlier, so we've already seen the back runners go, and then it kind of moves forward towards the front as you have more to lose and less to gain in case of safety cars and things like that can come out later.
We just looked at a replay. That was interesting, actually, because George Russell had taken a place, but on worn tyres, and Lance Stroll, who had come out of the pits on fresh tyres but was lapped, he just took full advantage of all his extra grip.
Well, Stroll was actually fighting with a car for track position.
Yeah.
It was Tsunoda, and when Russell made the move on Tsunoda, he followed through, and then he had DRS on Russell as well, and he thought, well, I can't back off now because Tsunoda's going to get past me. So then he overtook George as well. So I apologise, Lance, for my doubt, but yeah, he was just trying to fight for his own position.
Into the pits comes Carlos Sainz. So Carlos, and a good stop this time for Ferrari. Meanwhile, Verstappen's radio.
I can't hold this much longer, maybe behind.
Yeah, understood, mate.
Well, he's got a good gap, there's no doubt. And meanwhile, Oscar Piastri going up the inside of Lewis Hamilton, and he's taken the place. Straightforward move into turn 3. Hamilton will try and attack on the way out, but in fact, he's timed it beautifully. His DRS is still open, so it's going to be very difficult for Hamilton to come back at him. Oscar Piastri into 3rd.
Yeah, that was about as clean a move as you can get. Really well done for Piastri to get the move done on track, and he can now set his sights onto Carlos Sainz and fighting for those extra points.
Yeah, Ruth, this is still going to be a good strategy battle, isn't it, between McLaren and Ferrari for that position.
Yes, exactly. Sainz has come into the pits, so now Oscar, again, like he did before, is going to try and extend. If there's safety cars, VRCs, or just raw car pace, they can use that to overcut the other cars. And at the front, there's an interesting battle going on as well. So on paper, Max has this wrapped up, but he is losing time with those blue flags. He's asking to pit, but the Red Bull guys on that pit will very sensibly don't want to box before Lando does, because then they expose their safety car window. And right now, that's the only way they will lose this race, is if they box under normal times. Lando's only 7 seconds before. If he takes it under safety car, he will cycle out in front.
Okay, interesting stuff. George Russell has just set a new fastest lap on his fresh tyres, and meanwhile Pierre Gasly is now right behind Charles Leclerc, and Daniel Ricciardo's a little bit further up, but yeah, it's Leclerc that he's really challenging for now as we come through 2/3 around the lap.
Yeah, going back to Verstappen, he's still holding a decent lap time. You know, he's in the mid-10s and is actually, for the last couple of laps, he has been a little bit better, although Lando just took some hundredths out of him, a tenth on that last lap. But it's all to say, it's not as dire as he sounded on the radio, and here he is again.
Good lap, Max. Gap is up to 7.1. Lando, I think, struggling in the wake of the blue flag cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but the problem is behind me.
I understand, Max, but there's quite a train of cars that we would pit into, so we're fine for now.
Yeah, I agree with GP there. He's just got to kind of calm him down. So in the car, he doesn't really realise how good he's got it, to be honest. And all of the lap time that he lost, a lot of that was to do with the blue flags that now Lando is going to take. So that gap is naturally going to open. As you say, they're doing exactly the right thing on that pit wall. Extending, don't want to expose your safety car, keep everything under control.
And look at this, Leclerc's coming under some more pressure from Pierre Gasly. Gasly having a little look to get alongside, taking a wide line to make sure he doesn't lose too much downforce. He's having a go at it.
Yeah, he wasn't brave enough to try the Piastri move around the outside of turn 6. He could have done. Charles was covering him off on the inside, and now he has to sit in the dirty air as they go through the fastest part of the track. But he is inching ever closer. He does have pace on that Ferrari.
Going well at the moment. Let's just see whether he can get the DRS into play. This is a battle for just outside the points at the moment, but potentially this could be last few points at the end of this Grand Prix. Will it go to Ferrari, to Leclerc, who missed out on the first lap? Will it go to Alpine? It's certainly an opportunity here for Pierre Gasly. He's got DRS again, but the Ferrari has DRS as well from the car up ahead of Lando Norris. Oh, and Gasly's gone down the inside. He's gone down the inside of Leclerc. Oh, and a bit of a run wide there for Norris up ahead of them. That was a bit strange because he was just on his own, and now Leclerc is trying to get the place back. Listen to Verstappen.
Understood.
Well, Leclerc tried to get it back, couldn't quite do it, Jack.
Yeah, he had a bit of a lock-up as he tried to outbrake Gasly around the outside, but didn't have the grip in the tyres. They're now saying box to Verstappen, so they are going to bring him in on this lap. He's just coming up to the pit entry now.
I have to say, it looks like Leclerc's tyres are looking a bit worn, even though he's on this slightly different strategy. He's sliding around quite a lot there, Ruth.
Yeah, they're trying to go very long distance on that medium tyre, as we see Max jump into the pits.
And Lando, I think Lando's in as well. So both of our top two are now into the pits at the same time. Obviously, they came in together earlier in the session, and Lando got a bit upset that he had to brake a bit early. Oh, slow stop for Verstappen. He gets going now. That wasn't ideal. 6.5 seconds. Now, can McLaren go a quicker stop? Not brilliant. 2.9, but he has gained some.
I think they were holding him to avoid the same thing that happened in the previous stop. They didn't want to take the risk of blocking Norris on his way into the box, and they have the gap to do it. He comes out comfortably ahead of Norris still.
He does, and they've both come out on fresh medium tyres.
Oh my God. All right, it's fine. While on the exit.
The reason he feels like that is because they had the delay, and the gap, which was at 7 seconds, Ruth, before this, is now down to 2.8 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And they've also had the choice, so they could have fitted a new medium or a new hard or a used medium. That medium tyre has taken a couple of laps in the qualifying session.
Verstappen having a bit of a lock-up as well. He's pushing a bit harder than you might imagine on his outlap.
Yeah, they'll have to hope that hasn't created a flat spot. That would be worst-case scenario, and it was on the most crucial tyre, that inside front right. So they'll be monitoring that now. They can look at the vibration in the data from the sensors that are on the car. So he's going to get that fed back to him. He'll feel it immediately in the car, but yeah, not a happy body at the moment.
Well, fascinating to see because Lando Norris is within 1.7 seconds now, but they are dealing with some traffic. Let's quickly get some more news on the cricket. Simon Marn.
Yes, England have just lost their first wicket. Tammy Bowman run out, but they are absolutely flying here. 73 for 1 off 13 overs, chasing just 141.
We've just had another look at Max Verstappen's pit stop. It was a bit slow getting one of the wheels off.
So I think it was a double whammy. He was slow on the rear left, and they were cautious to take their time with it and get it right, and then that put them into the path of Norris potentially, although we need to see another angle.
Exactly, and there's 3 laps age tyre difference. Max has already done one flying lap on those medium tyres earlier in the weekend, whereas Lando's a brand spanking new.
Just saw that lock-up on board with Verstappen as well. I don't think it's that bad. He'd already started turning in and taken the weight off of it, and that's when the front tyre locked, and it's not going to have done as much damage as if it had been a lock from the beginning of the braking zone, so he's going to get away with that.
The gap is almost down to DRS zone. It's 1.077 seconds, 1.049 between Verstappen and Lando Norris.
And he's got traffic in the last sector. It's terrible for him.
He's in DRS zone now, so there's a real chance that Lando Norris can put some pressure on Max Verstappen. Now they're both on this slightly different strategy, but now effectively the same going into the final stage of this race. Max just opened it up over a second to get him out of that zone. This is close stuff, though.
Yeah, Max actually got the blue flag benefit from Tsunoda, which you obviously do. So he was able to use that DRS to claw back the gap, but now it's dropped just below 1 second again, which means Lando will have around 7/10 advantage from that DRS across a lap if Max can't find another blue flag advantage to get it back for himself.
Hamilton's been in. He took the penalty that he was told about earlier on, so it was obviously a slower stop than he liked it, but he always knew it was going to be a slow one, and that means Hamilton has now come back out in 6th place. It means that Piastri is in 5th. Now, Piastri currently is some 5 seconds behind Carlos Sainz. That's going to be his big battle to try and close up that gap, but what a battle for the lead we have, Jack.
Yeah, the challenge for Norris now is to make sure that he can stay with Verstappen through that challenging 2nd and 3rd sectors where you've got a lot of high speed, stay in that dirty yeah, he's done it beautifully. He's under 0.7 of a second as they exit the final corner. He gets a burst of DRS across the start-finish line, and he's going to set himself up for an attack here as they go for turn 3.
Impressive race pace here from Lando Norris. He is really beginning to put some pressure on Max Verstappen. And Verstappen also seeing that they've got the traffic up ahead, as you say. DRS on the McLaren right now. He's getting closer and closer to the back of Max Verstappen. He has to think about a move. Decides against it at the last moment into turn 3. Both of them getting through the corner cleanly. And Lando Norris is absolutely on it.
That was a very late move from Verstappen. I'm not sure if the stewards might want to have a look at it. He saw Norris coming with the lunge as they got into the braking zone, and he dived into the middle of the track to dissuade Lando. And here's Norris's radio.
Yeah, he reacted to my move. You're not allowed to do that.
Exactly,
okay, we're on it.
Exactly what you said, Jack, and he's already reporting that. But this is a very, very tight battle, Ruth.
It is such a tight battle, and it's going to get even tighter because they're coming up the back of Albon and Stroll, which means Max will have DRS, so he might be able to use that to pull away.
He saw me move, then he moved.
We're reporting to the race director. He saw you move and then moved.
I always find it fascinating, a driver who's driving at this level, trying to battle for the lead, could talk so calmly on the radio at the same time.
You've got to put your argument across as if you were a lawyer if you want to get those penalties. But now, making their way through traffic, Max has actually got the benefit of that DRS again from those blue flags, and he's opened up a little bit of a gap. He gets past the Aston Martin into turn 3. Norris closing up very quickly, the Aston staying well out of the way of these two leaders as they come through, but he has got a bit of a cushion now as well.
And he's such a thinking driver. If he's smart, he's going to use that DRS exactly into turn 3, which means that he can hopefully try and break it a little bit by the all-key detection between 9 and 10. That's the only chance he can do to try and break the DRS from Lando at this point.
They've just shown a little replay, Jack, of the move that Lando complained about that Max made. What are your thoughts?
If they do it by the letter of the rulebook, that's a penalty. It's very clear that Verstappen is on the racing line in the braking zone, and as Lando dives to the inside for his lunge, he only then starts to move across, and you cannot do that once you've started braking, like Lando says very correctly. However, the stewards are always going to be a little bit less likely to give a penalty when there isn't contact, when there isn't an incident or a consequence. Here's Verstappen.
It's like there's something wrong with the car, man. I have no grip.
He is struggling. Jenny, what have you got for us?
Yeah, well, all this talk of penalties is making a lot of people who are listening very nervous. Of course, it's England versus Slovakia in 2 hours' time, and everyone on the messaging on hashtag BBCF1 is saying, stop talking about penalties.
Absolutely, yeah. Everybody looking forward to that. For an English racer who is currently challenging for the lead here in Austria, we could be on for a very interesting evening as well. But the football coming up later, of course, 5 o'clock here on Radio 5 Live. Lando Norris still maintaining that pressure on Max Verstappen. Not much change.
No, it's evened out a little bit now. You know, the problem for Lando Norris now is Max has been able to get up to speed with those tyres, get into a bit of a rhythm, and the longer that he sits behind that Red Bull, the worse it is for his tyres.
Exactly, it's all that all-important 1 second gap. If Max can get it up to over a second.
Also mid-6, if you'd prefer, mid-6.
No!
He doesn't like it when his brakes aren't good, does he? So yeah, he needs to basically try and get more than a second before he gets to the next back marker, and then gets that extra oomph from Sargent's DRS. If he can't do that, Lando's literally able to hold on. It's bad for Lando's tyres, but it's good for his lap time. It's 0.7 a lap for free he's getting that Max doesn't have when he doesn't have the DRS.
He's within a car's length of Max Verstappen as they head down into turn 3. Very, very close. Heading up over the hill once again, and he is on the attack. He knows that there was a chance that he perhaps passed away in the sprint race yesterday. Right now, he's got a real chance of trying to take victory in the Grand Prix.
Just to let you know, Norris has been cited for, has been showed the black and white flag for track limits.
Okay, so a warning to him, but it's not a penalty as yet. He just needs to be careful he doesn't go over the track limits too much.
Yeah, that was for turn 1, where you can run over the sausage curb and effectively keep your speed and run onto the tarmac there behind the track. So he's on the final warning, and he's going to have to be careful. Not ideal when you're looking for every last little bit to get into the lead.
Yeah, exactly. A 5-second penalty for either track limits or for over-enthusiastic overtaking move could be all the difference when you're only 0.5 apart.
It is, but it is so close still. I'm amazed at Lando's managing to keep it so close to Max Verstappen when Max had this 7-second lead for so long in the early stages, and he's having a look down the inside. Lando Norris looks up, runs a little bit wide, and surely he's going to have to give the place back. He is in front of Max Verstappen, but he did run over the curbs there.
He came from absolutely miles back, and he's not giving it back yet. They're going side by side into turn 4. He does cede the position. He gives it back to Max because, crucially, he couldn't keep all four wheels inside the track at turn 3, and Verstappen did.
Be able to go outside the track.
I guarantee that message came within half a second of them exiting turn 3. Max instantly was on it, as Lando was when he was in the same position.
And to be fair to Lando, we're just looking at a replay of it, Jack. To be fair to him, he would have known that was a bit. He went down the inside, very late brake, locked up, ran wide, and that was it.
He was so close. So if he hadn't had that final lockup, I think he could have kept it within the track. And he came, like I say, from miles back. So that was a brilliant move. If he could just have slowed it down a little bit more.
As long as he's not messing his tyres up, Ruth, with a few lockups.
Well, the lunge, you need to make the lunge into turn 4 here, because the problem is if you're ahead at turn 3, then you can get the switchback effect, because the detection is 9-10, which is why they gave the position back so quickly, so that he was following Max, and he still has that DRS effect, which is so huge here. It's 7/10, remember, guys. That's almost the spread between P1 and P20 in Q1.
But the Red Bull is quick in a straight line, as we've seen at all the tracks we've been to this year. It's very fast in a straight line, so even when it's giving that DRS zone behind you, it makes it tough. Let's listen to Norris.
He can't keep moving after I've moved. It's just dangerous. Oh, we're going to have a big shot. He forced me to go wide and look off.
Understood, mate. He keeps forcing me off. It was the right thing to do to give the position back. Let's get it again.
Yeah, but I can't keep doing this. He keeps moving on to look up.
Interesting conversation. Remember, Max and Lando actually get on very well, but right now there are some arguments about how it's going.
Outside their car they do, and a little message from race control. They have noted track limits at turn 3 for Lando Norris, who of course is on his final warning. You would hope that they would argue, well, he didn't actually gain an advantage there. He did give the place back, so hopefully no penalty, but he's still close here, and he knows that there's a clock on this. His tyres are not going to be able to do this forever. He has to get the move done.
10 laps to go. Lando Norris is again closing up to the back of Max Verstappen, and he's almost alongside into turn 3. That's good. Now this could help him into turn 4, because although he didn't get alongside, he's got a nice smooth run, and he's definitely got DRS running well. He's got a chance as they come down towards turn 4. He's going to go around the outside or try, but Max is able to brake late. He brakes too late. He misses the apex, Max Verstappen, but he still holds on. Very talented work from Max, but Lando's trying everything.
That was brilliant defence from Max. That time he saw what Lando was trying to do. He covered him off. He did just enough. Here he is on the radio.
Not entirely sure how he thinks she forced him off, Max. As in, Lando went straight up the inside and went too far.
The conversations are on both sides. Under investigation, the track limits for Norris. That is under investigation by the stewards. It is possible Lando's going to get a penalty.
There's a big power slide for Verstappen as he came out of the last corner there. He's getting everything he can out of that car. There is no holding back at the moment. They've got another car in front of them, this time an Alpine. So Verstappen's going to get the toe off of him. No DRS, but he does get a little bit of a boost, and that's going to keep him safe into turn 3.
Yeah, this time into turn 3, Lando Norris is not close enough to get alongside, but he's still, well, very, very tight. Max taking a wider line, almost on purpose, to try and get a good exit, but there is another chance here for Lando Norris. He's close enough, but no, not quite. Again, that straight line speed of the Red Bull and the late braking ability that Max has makes it very difficult to overtake him into turn 4. We are focusing on the battle for the lead here in Austria within the final 10 laps of the Grand Prix. George Russell is currently in third place, a rather lonely third. Carlos Sainz is in fourth, but I can tell you, Carlos is really under pressure now from Oscar Piastri. The gap has come down to just over a second, so we could be on keeping an eyes on another potential move for the other McLaren to move up past the Ferrari. Hamilton is in 6th place, Hulkenberg in an excellent 7th for the Haas team, 8th place for Sergio Perez, 9th for Kevin Magnussen, Haas on target for double points, and Daniel Ricciardo on target for 10th. But we are focusing on the battle for the lead, and you're listening in to Max Verstappen right now as he tries to defend a bit more.
Exactly, and those 4 track limits violations. Could it be a 5-second penalty? Here we go,
sorry to interrupt, but Norris down the inside. Oh, and now Max goes wide. Max goes over the limits. Now, how are they going to play that one.
Oh, they're going to argue that Norris pushed him off, that he left him no option but to avoid contact. It was very close, and he's still challenging him into turn 4, but no dice. So Verstappen holds track position, but how is this going to play out? Is there going to be an order from the race control?
Listen to the radio.
Yeah, he has to give the position back. I was ahead at the apex.
Yeah, and he went off track.
And Max hasn't given it back. I'd love to look at a replay of this in a moment just to see exactly where they were. But Lando did get in front briefly, and then Max was the one that ran wide to get it back himself. Listen to Max.
It forced me off again.
Not clever, is it?
He's just drive-bombing, like, it's not how you overtake.
They're both complaining about each other, but I tell you what, they're so close again as they're heading up to turn 1. We need to focus on this because Lando's got every chance. He's got every chance. They have got some cars that they are about to lap, so this might help Max, although it's not close enough yet for him to get the DRS. So heading down into turn 3, is Lando going to go for it? He moves to the outside. They touch! And puncture on Verstappen, damage on Verstappen and on Lando. Is his car okay? Lando goes past, but no, he doesn't. Surely Max has got to back off. He's got a puncture.
They're both going slow. They're both going slowly. I think they're both out of this.
Wow.
They're still fighting into turn 4. Norris locks up. He's got some damage, and there's going to be a long, slow, painful run back to the pit lane for both of them. It's a really long way to go. The tyre's nearly off the rim for Verstappen. What a disaster.
What has gone wrong for Lando Norris is we can't quite see yet. This could mean a victory for George Russell. This could mean a win, and Lando's got a penalty as well. That goes back to what happened earlier. He's definitely got a puncture, hasn't he? You can see online. And now, listen to Max.
Nice. Oh my God.
This is dangerous now. They're both going very slowly in the fastest part of the track, and cars weaving in and out around them. They're thankfully nearly into the pit lane, but yeah, what a shame for it to end that way, but it was coming. They were getting closer and closer to each other in the braking zones, and Max was really pushing it.
George Russell leads, Carlos Sainz second, Piastri right there in third.
It's a rear left puncture and a rear right puncture with these cars. They clashed. How are the stewards going to look at this one?
It is going to be remarkable. They're both coming into the pits. Verstappen into the pits before Lando Norris, and it's under investigation by the stewards already. But it means that George Russell now has a 2.3 second advantage over Sainz. Piastri is attacking Sainz. Piastri's almost there on Carlos, so we could see a change there between them. And look, we're also seeing Lando Norris coming in, his right rear flapping away with a puncture on his right rear. He's trying to get it into the pits now safely, but we're watching Oscar Piastri, and Piastri's side by side with Sainz, and he could go around the outside quite possibly here. He's trying to make it work. Sainz trying to defend. He's done it. Oh, beautiful.
Brilliant move, and he's done it again at turn 6. That's 3 moves he's pulled around the outside of turn 6, and Piastri now, the remaining hope for McLaren. He's going to be chasing down the Mercedes of Russell now.
Yeah, and at his closing speed, this is not over. He is going to be on Russell's tail. He is on the medium, Russell is on the hard. He's got the faster car. It is not over yet for the win.
That's amazing. So you're right, George Russell is leading, but he may not win this yet. Oh, and Lando's getting out, and you can feel in his body the bitter disappointment at how this has worked out. Not a major... virtual safety car. How's that going to affect things?
This could be it. This could be it. The restart on that hard will cost him about 4 tenths into turn 4. This could be critical for the win.
George, you can win this. You can win this, George.
Just let me drive.
Wow, let me drive. George is just focused on what he's got to do. We are on lap 66 out of 71, and it's George Russell is going to be up against Oscar Piastri.
Now we're seeing the replay of Norris and Verstappen in that contact, and you have to say Verstappen was coming back across. Norris was up the outside, closing into the braking zone. Verstappen had done enough to keep him on the outside by defending, and then come back towards the racing line and made contact.
And critically for this restart, Albon is in between them. So at the moment, George is poised to take this win, because at the restart, there's no unlapping in a virtual safety car. It stays like this. As long as there's no mistakes on the start, he's in for it.
Okay, but just looking at that replay again, and it was such a light contact, really, and yet it's punctured both tyres. That's quite unusual to see.
Well, you can see it was Verstappen's rim. It was contact metal to metal of the two rims, and as soon as you fracture that bead, the tyre's got no chance of staying on, and we see a close-up of the damage now as they made their way back to the pits. But I have to say it looked like it was Verstappen that was really pushing the limits there and closing Norris up to the edge of the track. So we'll see what the stewards say, but in my opinion, that was on Verstappen.
And presumably the virtual safety cars, because of all this debris that they chucked out from those tyres.
Yeah, then there was a lot of sharp metal shards as well from the rims that was flying off. Norris's tyre was disintegrating by the time he got back to pit lane, and that was spewing carbon all over the racing line as well.
Okay, so, well, this is fascinating to see how it's all going to play out. Great stuff, and we saw how Piastri had managed to get past Carlos Sainz, but Piastri now is that little bit further behind George Russell, so it's going to be much harder for him to close up in this final stage.
Yeah, exactly. That VSC has cost him right now. You know, he's going to need something special. George needs to focus on that hard on the restart, but otherwise your 1, 2, 3 looks pretty set right now.
So virtual safety car all over. We're back to full racing. It's Russell leading from Piastri in second place, Carlos Sainz in third, then a big gap back to Lewis Hamilton. So it's really about first, second and third. Can Piastri close that gap? It's not really happening at the moment. Russell is controlling this effectively.
Yeah, he's done better than I expected with getting those hards back up to temperature after that slow safety car, full course yellow. And we're seeing a 10-second penalty for Max Verstappen for avoidable contact there.
Wow, okay. Well, he has come back out, Max Verstappen, currently in 5th position, but he's got a bit of a margin over Hülkenberg, but not 10 seconds. He's still likely to score some points, but he isn't going to win this one.
Yeah, he should get that P5, and he should also, on that soft tyre for a 2-lap stint, be able to set the fastest lap of the race. So he should be able to scramble some points. Obviously, not the 25 or 26 you get for winning.
Jenny.
Just to point out, it wasn't very much of a good penalty, was it? Because Verstappen gets 10 seconds, but actually Norris is out of this race, and so costly for the team as a whole. They were comfortably second until that pit stop closed that gap, and now he gets nothing.
Meanwhile, Piastri is still going a little quicker. He's closing up that gap. I know we're running out of laps, and I think George Russell has enough. 3 laps to go here, but he's brought it back down to 2.6 seconds. We're pulling away a little bit from Carlos Sainz in third, Lewis Hamilton in fourth, Max Verstappen in fifth, but we know he's now got plus 10 seconds. Hülkenberg is currently in sixth, so Hülkenberg may end up with fifth, but there's Hülkenberg under attack from Sergio Perez.
I think Hülkenberg will be safe Verstappen will be safe from Hülkenberg. He's got enough of a gap, but yeah, you're right, he's coming under attack himself from the other Red Bull of Perez. But Piastri not closing quickly enough at the moment. He only closed the gap by about half a second on that previous run, and he's got 2.5 seconds to close in the remaining 3 laps. It's just not quite enough.
And Verstappen set that 107.7, which is easily the fastest lap of the race on that soft tyre we normally only see in qualifying, so he will get an extra point for that because he finishes in the top 10 as it stands.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, Hülkenberg's too far back to, even with the penalty, to take that place. Meanwhile, Piastri is getting within nearly 2 seconds of George Russell, but I think he needs more laps in this race. We're on lap 69 out of 71. He's gaining tenths all the time, but whether it's going to be quite enough, this could be a victory for Mercedes. My goodness, this is a real turnaround for the Mercedes team, for George Russell. He is the last driver to have won for Mercedes. That was in Brazil in 2022, and there's a chance to take a victory, the first win for Mercedes in 2024 after a long gap. He's just got to hold on, and he's maintaining the gap to Piastri.
He is, and he's doing enough here. He just needs to not make a mistake. That's all that he needs to do, because Piastri will not close that gap quickly enough to mount an attack in, just based on pure pace alone. So George has to bring this home.
He's doing a fine job so far, George Russell. He was in such a lonely third place for so much of this race, and now he's got a great chance to take victory. I wonder how that must feel inside for him.
I mean, it's got to be incredibly special. The amount of time he's sat watching people take victories here, never had an opportunity yet, and yeah, the leaders take each other out. Suddenly P3 becomes P1.
Well, you have to be there for when things happen ahead, don't you? So he's made his own luck here. Let's see if he can close it out. They're coming towards the last lap now.
They are indeed, as George Russell goes over the line. We are on to the last lap here in Austria. The gap between himself and Oscar Piastri, he's maintained it at 2.4 seconds. So The McLaren in second is not within DRS range. There's really no danger for George. He's just got to complete this final relatively short lap around the Austrian circuit to take a victory for Mercedes this year. You know, he's never actually even been on the podium at this Austrian racetrack before. He was on target for a podium, and remember, this will actually be 3 podiums in a row for Mercedes, but it's not just going to be a podium, it's going to be the top of the podium. It's going to be a win. He's got just about 2/3 of the lap to do. Absolutely under control. Piastri is in second. Remember, having started in 7th place, this has ended up being a remarkable run for Oscar Piastri. And yes, 2 cars having an incident, dropping back, that's made a difference. But he'd already got past Sainz and Hamilton. Hamilton down in 4th place. Max Verstappen on the meanwhile is in 5th position. The man who was leading so much of this race, who battled so hard with Lando Norris. Into the final corner comes George Russell. And across the line, George Russell wins the Austrian Grand Prix, takes the victory for Mercedes, their first win in 36 Grand Prix. He was the last man to do it. He's done it again. Brilliant stuff for George Russell, taking advantage of the incident between Verstappen and Lando Norris. Piastri finishes in 2nd place. 3rd goes to Sainz, and meanwhile, there's more going on as Sergio Perez is still trying to get past Nico Hülkenberg.
He was fully locked up on the inside, just trying to sneak his nose up the inside of turn 4. He couldn't quite do it. Hülkenberg shutting the door. He wants to hold on to that 6th place, and he's going to, I think, as they round into the final 2 corners.
This is great stuff between Hülkenberg and Perez, and they're going into the last couple of corners, as you say, and it looks as though Hülkenberg's going to hold on. So 3rd has gone to Sainz, 4th to Hamilton, 5th to Max Verstappen, and yes, 6th place goes to Nico Hülkenberg. Best result for a while for the Haas team. Funnily enough, they've had good results here in the past. Perez in 7th place in the Red Bull, and the other Haas of Kevin Magnussen finishing in 8th. Double points for Haas. This has been a brilliant day for them. Final points going to Daniel Ricciardo and to Pierre Gasly, taking 10th place in the Alpine. Well, what a day for George Russell, taking his 2nd ever victory in Formula 1 Grand Prix, taking a win from 3rd on the grid. You know, the last time a win from 3rd on the grid here in Austria was Mercedes in 2014. Nico Rosberg did it.
Well done, mate. Well done. They had to pick up the pieces. Well done. Not over till it's over. It's not over until it's over. Okay, great job.
Yeah, George, my bad. Speaking to your braking, I just got it. It got me.
You got very excited there, Toto. Very excited.
And I'm even more now. Congratulations, we've got that win. That was so important. Yeah. Well done.
Well done, everybody. We wouldn't have thought this in Bahrain. Well done.
A wonderful performance, and yes, they had a little bit of luck on their side, but they deserved it. And George Russell, that is Mercedes' 7th ever win here, which is more than any other team. There have been several teams that have had 6 wins here in the past over the much history of the Austrian Grand Prix, but now Mercedes have gone to 7 victories, and it's the first since 2020. So Lewis Hamilton was the last driver to win for Mercedes here. It was actually when it was the Styrian Grand Prix, where in 2020 we had 2 versions of the Grand Prix, the Austrian and the Styrian, around the same circuit. But wow, for them to take a victory, this is a big boost. And now, of course, we've had several drivers, Jack, who've had single victories this year, whether it's Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and now it is George Russell.
It's proving to be a much more open season than we expected, isn't it? You know, we thought it would be another era of Verstappen dominance, but it's just not been the case. You know, people are close enough to that Red Bull now that they're forcing mistakes, forcing battles, and this is what happens. You get unpredictability, and you know, that battle between Norris and Verstappen today, fantastic while it lasted. A shame that it ended the way it did, but they were inching that way. Every lap that passed, you felt the tension building and the aggression building as well. Verstappen did not want to give that one up, and he overstepped the mark in the end.
Well, it's a good day for England at this point, isn't it? George Russell taking victory, with the football coming up very shortly on Radio 5 Live. The match, the kickoff at 5 p.m. here on Radio 5 Live. Is there going to be more English heritage on this 30th of June? We shall wait to see. But George Russell has certainly taken a brilliant victory. And Ruth, just looking at all the strategy in the the end, it was more about incident as well as strategy, wasn't it?
Yeah, always is the case here. In the end, it was that two-stopper, the medium hard, looking pretty similar, and a little bit of strategy right at the very end. Fernando Alonso, all the way down in P18, did a charge push to steal the fastest lap. He doesn't get to keep the point, but neither does anybody else. Took it straight off of Max.
That's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't seen that. So Alonso, yeah, if you don't set the fastest, if you set a fast lap but you're not in the top 10, you don't get the point, which is a bit of a shame.
Just looking at the championships then, 81 points is the lead now that Max Verstappen has over Lando Norris, but that gap between Norris and Leclerc for second and third is just 6 points. And then the constructors, Red Bull obviously lead the way with 355 points, Ferrari 291 and McLaren 268.
Okay, well, there's definitely a good battle in the second place in the Constructors' Championship at the moment between Ferrari and McLaren. But what a day this is for Mercedes, and Toto Wolff is looking particularly happy down there in the pit lane, isn't he?
As he should. I mean, it's obviously not a win that they expected, but like George said on the radio, you have to be there to pick up the pieces, and, you know, they put themselves in a really strong place. He did a really strong drive to solidify that podium position before the incident, and they deserve that.
And just like Canada and just like Barcelona, we have 3 races in a row here where the fastest car has not won the race.
That's a good point. Yes, absolutely. Well, we're going to hear from our top 3 drivers with a former winner here, David Coulthard.
Carlos Sainz, welcome. Another podium in your career. In what was a fairly quiet weekend in terms of overall performance, but it all came alive at the end there. Did you see the action ahead, or were you just very much focused on bringing your car home?
Yeah, quite an eventful race up front. No, for us it was all about trying to keep up with George. We knew the Mercedes today might have a bit of an advantage on race pace. We tried everything to keep up with him. Yeah, Oscar at the end was coming really, really quick. Yeah, in the NP3, which is, I think, a good result. I think we can be quite happy, quite proud of that, because, yeah, this weekend hasn't been easy for us, and to come away with 15 points on NP3 is a good result.
We're in the middle of this triple header. We've come off the back of your home Grand Prix. We have Silverstone in a week's time. Can we expect a step forward in performance there? Because it didn't really look that without the incident between Lando and Max that you would have been here on the podium today.
Yeah, happy days, you know, for Formula One, that there's a bit of action up front, and we're getting to see some nice battles. Unfortunately for us, we are still coming off the back of a tough couple of races where we are not quite there to fight for the win yet, but we're trying to do everything as we can as a team to be back on form in Silverstone and in the upcoming races to make sure next time we are up there to capitalize. And if not, podiums like this are always good news, and we will keep pushing flat out to stay in the fight.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing that big push. Well done on the podium.
Thank you.
As we move on to our second place finisher, who must be thinking what could have been. It all became undone even before you started the race with that qualifying penalty for track limits.
Yeah, there's a lot of what ifs and maybes. Yeah, obviously starting from yesterday, but yeah, I know that's only my 4th podium in F1, but yeah, so close to a win. It hurts a little bit, but really good points. Obviously, I think the second half of the race we were coming on pretty strong, and yeah, happy with another podium. Just when it's that close, you can't help but hurt a little bit.
Well, you can carry that momentum hopefully onto your home Grand Prix in a week's time at Silverstone.
Yeah,
not your home
not
Grand Prix,
Grand Prix, but the McLaren home Grand Prix. Yeah, obviously it was a place of good memories from last year, and hopefully we can be up the front again. Obviously, I haven't seen what happened with Lando and Max, but clearly it was pretty even up the front, and yeah, I think we're well and truly in the mix. So yeah, Silverstone's a track I always enjoy. Team's home race, so excited for what's to come.
Okay, well, good points today. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, our Grand Prix winner, celebrating his 2nd Grand Prix, George Russell.
Yeah, incredible. I think it was a tough fight out there at the beginning of the race, just to hold on to that P3, and I saw on the TV that Max and Lando was going pretty hard. I knew Lando would want to try and get that race win, but you know, the team have done an amazing job to get us in this fight. you got to be there at the end to pick it to pieces, and that's where we were.
Amazing. So you were watching the big screens, minding your own business in your own Grand Prix, while watching that battle out front, willing to happen what actually happened.
Yeah, it was, they were going for it, and I couldn't believe actually how close we were to Lando and Max. I think it was only about 12, 13 seconds behind. And I knew it was a possibility. You're always dreaming, but as I said, just so proud to be back on the top step. The team have worked so hard. We've made so many strides since the start of the season. So, the last 3 races have been incredible. So, more to come.
Now, look, you've done everything to make sure you were in that position. The other 2 looked like they had the overall pace today, had they not had the contact. But all you can do is drive your car and put yourself in the position that you have to then capitalise. So you must be really proud with this, your second Grand Prix victory.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's no secret Red Bull with Max and McLaren with Lando are still a little bit out in front, but we're always putting ourselves in that 3rd place position the last couple of races. And obviously, if anything happens up front, we're there to pick it up. But, just really proud of everybody. And, what an exciting time for us.
And George, we're 1 week away from the British Grand Prix. That would be nice to carry this momentum towards another podium there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're riding a bit of a wave at the moment. These last 3 races have been incredible. I think realistically we probably could have won the race in Canada, so this probably makes up for one too many mistakes my side there, and just really proud to be back on the top step.
Okay, well, you're going to be in the top step of the podium. Go and enjoy the champagne and celebration.
Thank you.
David Coulthard with the interviews and George Russell with the win. Toto Wolff, the boss of Mercedes, is underneath the podium, ready for the champagne to be sprayed down on him. And what a victory. I mean, George Russell, right time, right place.
Max, heads up, you were given a 10-second penalty for that incident with Lando. Just in case you're quizzed about that after the race.
Of course. Yeah, sure. That's just ridiculous.
Max Verstappen.
You can just send it left and right. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, he didn't behave correctly there, Max. So, we're desperately unlucky, especially here, but you did your very best.
Max Verstappen waving to his fans who have flocked into the Red Bull ring to cheer him on. Now we go into the driver's briefing room. And, who was right, who was wrong? Jack, from a driver's point of view, how do you call it? Who was Verstappen in the right? Was Norris in the wrong? I don't know.
It's very clear for me that Verstappen overstepped the mark today, not just in that incident. I think he was really pushing the limits, and like I said during the race, by the rules of the book, it was clear that he was reacting too late to Norris as well. It's a very difficult track to be clean on because, we've spoken about off the air, you have to go in very late and get your elbows out, and the DRS invites that kind of racing. But you still have to keep it clean. You have to leave room for your competitors. You have to leave them the space if you see them coming up the inside. And he wasn't doing that today. I think he was lucky to not get a penalty earlier for his reaction. And I think the penalty he got for the incident was deserved.
Interesting, yeah, absolutely. It was a tough battle between Lando and Max, and normally I have to say Max does give Lando, fair space, but I tend to agree with Jack that he didn't really quite give him enough. It was nearly, but it's only fractions when it can go wrong, and it did feel an unfortunate incident between them that took them off. It's all just being watched at the moment by some of the guys who are ready for the podium. Ruth, what are your thoughts? I mean, the track layout does affect some of the overtaking here.
Yeah, it really does. We were talking about it, and it's just, this DRS is so powerful that when you have a kind of a cat and mouse attempt like this, and the way you overtake it is by getting your elbows out, and there is a line, it's a really kind of fine line to get close to, and obviously when you cross it you get a penalty, but also track limits make such a difference as well. With Lando getting that 5-second penalty right at the very end without the contact, that would have been the win as well. There's such fine margins, which is, as a viewer, great for us to watch.
We've seen so many clashes at this circuit, though, haven't we? If you think back over the years, we've had Rosberg and Hamilton all out. Leclerc was in a battle there as well. What is it a fault of the track then that this leads to so many incidents, or is it just that it inspires and brings on really hard racing?
I mean, I think It's not a fault of the track, it's just the way that it is. The drivers have to deal with what they've been given, and Max can't blame the track for being combative in creating that kind of racing. He's the one that moved over on Lando and didn't give him the space. He broke the rules, and it's as simple as that. The reasons why he broke the rules are because you put so much more emphasis on getting a good exit into the next straight because of what we've said about the DRS being so powerful. That's the motivation for these drivers to be that little bit more aggressive when they're defending their position and getting that launch.
And it does make you wonder about the penalties. I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier. He's got a 10-second penalty, but he's still scored some very useful points, whereas poor old Lando, unable to rejoin the track, having in an incident that has been penalised to Max. So Lando's the big loser on this, isn't he?
Yep, but you cannot penalise by consequence.
Indeed.
And the rules of the game are if you have avoidable contact, which is what Max did, it's a 5 or 10-second penalty depending on the severity, and that's what they gave him. So it is unfortunate, and I'm sure that McLaren and Norris feel bitter, but that's just not how you penalise, in my opinion.
We will talk more about this in the podcast. Of course, you can ask BBC Sounds for it. You can listen online to wherever you get your normal podcasts, and we will do that straight after we come off air, and hopefully before the England match begins, because we all want to go and watch it. But Russell, phenomenal. He was just right there. I mean, where did he manage to get this win? Just break it down. Obviously, it was fortune for the crash ahead of him.
Yeah, but also there were various things here that worked for him, and one of those was Piastri's incident in qualifying, because Piastri would have started third. Piastri's finished second, and it's going to hurt him even more in a way that he dropped down to seventh, isn't it, Ruth? Because I think this could have easily been Piastri's win in the end. It's George's win. Decent job in qualifying, and he just stayed with it throughout the race.
Yeah, exactly. Make no bones about it. The Red Bull car was the fastest car today. It was that incident in the pits, that slow stop that brought those two cars together. Then their DRS advantage brought Lando right back into it. And the Mercedes was faster than the Ferrari, but it was much slower. And as you say, he didn't put a foot wrong. He had a car that was really realistically good enough for kind of fifth here, much faster than Checo. Qualified ahead of Piastri, was P3 from lap 1 all the way until those two cars DNF'd. Just put in a solid race.
Jack, they've come a long way, haven't they, Mercedes? Yes, they haven't got the fastest car, and yes, it was a bit of good luck, but imagine that the win at this time at the beginning of the year, you wouldn't have thought they'd have been able to do that.
No, and that's exactly what George was saying on the cool-down lap, wasn't it? They wouldn't have thought this at the beginning of the season, but they've worked really hard to turn that car around, to get an understanding of what is needed in the development. And relative to Red Bull, you have to say they've done a really good job in catching up and making it a competitive package. They do still trail the McLaren and Red Bull, but it's good steps.
And a second ever win in F1 for George Russell, right ahead of the Silverstone British Grand Prix next week. It makes it very exciting for everyone.
It does, but also the pace of the McLaren, the possibility for Lando, who's a winner this year now as well. I think there's going to be massive interest in the British Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton missed out on the podium today, but of course he's a very multiple winner at Silverstone. He adores being there as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of interest as to Max is going to have to cope with a lot of rivalry next week in Silverstone.
I was going to say, Silverstone's another one of those circuits that invites this kind of racing, because whether it's turn 3 going into Village with a very wide entry that narrows down very quickly, or Brooklands Luffield going into Copse, we've seen that you can have a lot of incidents there and people dive in on the brakes, and it could be fun. Yeah.
Well, it is 3:45, and I have to thank Ben Edwards, Ruth Bascom and Jack Aitken and the whole team at IMG for bringing this production. Fortune favours the brave, and for George Russell and Mercedes, they were in the right place at the right time for his second ever F1 win. England have done the job here. There were plenty of penalties, hopefully not so many tonight in Gelsenkirchen. Mark Chapman, over to you. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Welcome to Gelsenkirchen. We are an hour and 15 minutes